And we are live at the GBU Live Campus View Club here at the University of Pittsburgh at the Peterson Event Center. Jeff Hathorn with head coach Jeff Capel. We were just discussing before we got on the air how nice it is that basketball is a sport played inside, where you know the weather conditions. There's no shoveling in the zoo.
No, it's not. It's not. And thank goodness for that. But also, man, we've been going through a tough time. I'm really uh, grateful for the students continuing to show up. Um, I was pleasantly surprised when I turned the corner to see these people here. I'm really, really grateful for that and for the support that people are continuing to give our program and our team. Our guys are trying to fight. They're trying to learn how to fight, how to battle through, and it's been tough. But we have really, really good guys that are about the right stuff, and we just got to cross that bridge. We're close, but we have to do a little bit more to get there.
You mentioned the support. These are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids still.
Yeah.
How much does that mean to them just to get a pat on the back or, hey, we know you're trying, we're with you?
Yeah, it means a lot. I mean, you always want to, feel good about, what you do or being a part of something. Like they all chose to be a part of the University of Pittsburgh and to be a part of the Pittsburgh men's basketball program. And, you want to feel like that means something. And, it's easy to, feel that way when you're winning. Because people want to be a part of it. But when you're struggling a little bit, like we've struggled here the last month, really, it's very refreshing and to have people to still show up. And I know they appreciate it. We, as the adults, as the coaching staff, we appreciate it, and it goes a long way, man. Like it helps in recruiting. All of those things. And so I'm really, really grateful for it.
You mentioned after the game you thought your team was pressing,
Yeah.
especially at home. How do you get through that?
That's part of the getting across the bridge. Like you have to figure that out. If you look at the past couple of games we've played here, early, we've done some good things, but our inability to make a shot, whether it's even the Duke game, like it was, 2-point, 4-point, 6-point game, and we're right there. But then all of a sudden, we can't make a shot. They can't miss a shot. And then you see us just kind of pressed, and it's like the weight of the world on our shoulders. It's 20-14 against Syracuse, and they hit a three. We come down, we miss a shot. They hit another three, and then you could see us. I try to get a quick timeout just to try to calm us, but it's coming from a great place of we have to make something happen, or I have to make something happen, but the result isn't that. And it would help, especially in the first half, if these teams wouldn't make every shot against us here. Syracuse is making 4 threes a game. They make 6 in the first half, and I think 5 of them were defended. We were contesting and right there. Duke makes 7 a game. They made 9 in the first half. So we have to get over that hurdle too, and we have to be a little bit better defensively.
We were talking after the game, and Jalen Lowe was in the post-game news conference, and he was asked about it, and he discussed the maturity that you need and how you need to not take that with you on the defensive side. When you hear that from an 18-year-old, does that kind of tell you, hey, okay, we got the right kids here?
I know we have the right guys. I know that. And I know, like I had a long talk with our team today. We were off yesterday, so today was the first day we got back together. And I talked about, like, we're close, but we're far away. I think I may have said that to you before. And we have to cross this bridge. And I wanted them to think about when we first got together, when we first started the journey that we're on. And it started this summer. And the thing that I remember when we were practicing for Spain, when we went to Spain, when we came back, we separated once we left Spain, but then we came back, we started working, we started playing. And the thing that this team had, and we really had it at a high level, we were hard playing on both ends. We had a really, really great spirit about us. We shared the basketball like it was contagious. And we competed, and we had fun. And it was that way. Like, I talked to him about, like, we got off to a really good start. There were really no expectations. And then all of a sudden you start to win, you get a little buzz. There's expectations for some guys individually. There are expectations for us, which is a great thing. We lose to Florida and we come back, and in 36 hours we played Oregon State. And if you go back and you really look at that game, we did not shoot well in that game. Like, we couldn't make a shot. But man, we defended our butts off. We played hard. We listened. We followed the scouting report, and we were able to overcome that. We come back. We lose to Missouri. Couldn't make a shot. We lose to Clemson. We're right there. It's a one-possession game with 3.5 minutes left. We miss free throws. We can't finish it down the stretch. But then we go to West Virginia, and we play hard. We're together. We're connected. It helped that we made 16 threes, and Blake made 9 of them. But still, like, there was a toughness, there was a grit about us. And that's what we have to get back to. We have to get back to the spirit of our team. And it's not, like I told them, it's not coming from a bad place. Like, everything that each of them feel or maybe are feeling right now, I have felt it as a player. Whether you feel like me, the coach now, like your coach is screwing you, it's not. I felt that. I played for the best guy ever. If you're, thinking about external stuff, like, I felt that. Like, as a senior, it's my turn, and I feel like I'm letting everybody down and things like that. Like, that's a weight, that you can have. If there's a buzz about you for the NBA or a mock draft or whatever, like, that can be. And the thing I told him, I'm just telling you, trust me from experience, none of that works. None of it works. Like, you have to be where your feet are. You have to be present. And, that's what we have to get back to. We have to get back to that hunger, to that being together. And I'm not saying we're not together, but the spirit has to get back to how it was where we were just playing. We had something to prove, and we were having fun playing basketball.
A little later, we're going to talk about the Duke game. It is also another game of hoops for ALS. Yep. We're going to discuss that as well. When we continue, we're going to do a couple of segments talking about one of the legends at the University of Pittsburgh, Beano Cook. And one of the guys that knows him very well is also a play-by-play broadcaster with college basketball, Tim Brando.
Yep.
He is going to join us next as we continue on the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. Welcome back to the Campus View Club here from GBU Life. Jeff Hathorn with Jeff Capel. We were discussing some of the things with the team and going to Duke. Obviously, it's always a challenge. What do you tell your guys? It's one of the toughest places to play ever.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is that you can't be afraid. Like, I from experience of playing there for 4 years and then coaching there for 7 years, a lot of teams are defeated before the ball is ever tossed up because of the history of the place and and things like that. So you can't be afraid. You should be excited. The teams that have success in there are teams that, man, they love the moment, and it takes them to a different level. We were ready for that moment last year when we played down there, and we played really well for the first 30 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes we couldn't get a rebound. It was just like an avalanche, and that became the emergence of Derek Lively. That was the game that kind of changed their season, Duke's, and but we weren't afraid of the moment. So that's the big thing. You have to be excited. You have to be able to carry out the game plan. Communication is going to be huge because it'll be really loud in there. They haven't played in a week. That this was their bye week, and so I know they'll be really ready to go, and we will too.
In a way, getting away, just being with the guys, being together, is that maybe an advantage right now?
Yeah, I think so. I hate that it's Duke, but being away. But it's exciting that it's Duke. But I do think getting away. I look at our last 2 road games. We've actually played. Or 2 of our last 3 road games. We've played well. We really shot the ball and made shots at Louisville. We had played really well in the first half at Syracuse, and prior to that was at West Virginia. So hopefully we can make some shots, but more importantly, we can just play with the type of energy and spirit and toughness, physical and mental toughness that's required to be a good basketball team.
One of the voices associated with college basketball is Tim Brando. He joins us now from Fox Sports. And Tim, it's been an interesting college basketball year. There have been different teams that people have pointed to. Is this another one of those wide open, you could pick a number of teams that could end up on top at the end of this one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let me begin by saying, Jeff, it's great to be on your show, and thankfully we can pay homage to my dearly departed Gangster. And I know that was probably the premise for your call and having me on. But I want to say this about you, if you don't mind, for just a second. I loved you as a player, and just so you know, guards are always good to play-by-play guys when they're warming up. Jeff and Jason, okay, both of them were the kind of guys that when they were going through the layup line, they didn't just come over and say hello to Vital or to Rap. They always took time to give me a high five or a pat on the rear end to make me feel special. So, and of course, knowing your dad the way I did, the family, you guys mean a lot to me, and I wish you nothing but success. One of the great
Appreciate that.
Regrets I have about no longer getting to do ACC games because ESPN took it over is that I don't get to see you anymore.
Yeah, I know.
But know that I'm thinking about you.
I appreciate
and
it.
All our old Jefferson Pilot guys
Yeah.
are always thinking about you. And my buddy Alex Parmartino, who's now bringing Jim Boeheim, of all people, along as analyst.
Yeah.
Of all people,
Yep.
the Heimer. I just saw Jim doing a Westwood One game at Illinois last week with Rap. Guys all the time whenever we're watching a game on the ACC network. So I wanted to get that taken care of here.
Appreciate that.
The Heimer.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that one, Tim.
All those that know
no
Boeheim
question.
well,
Yep.
we've always called him the Heimer.
Yep.
That's one of those, you're in the circle, inside baseball lines.
Yep. No question.
So I was the keynote speaker at his Coaches versus Cancer affair, which is a big one that Julie puts on around 2012 or 13, and I was following Rap, so I had like 522s to fill. Jim is one of those guys. I've had a lot of people tell me, "Oh my God, he was such a grumpy old man," and I'm like, "No, he might have been to those that he didn't want to know he had a heart." But Jim's got as big a heart as there is, and he's having a blast now doing those games. I don't know if you caught one yet, Jeff, but he's good. He's telling stories. He's having fun.
He did
and I
a
think more importantly, Julie got his ass out of the house.
Yeah. He did one of our games recently, and I gave him a big hug. He came back there. I haven't seen him, and I go back with him from the USA basketball. We did the Olympics together in 2016 and the World Cup in 2014, and so I know what you're talking about. Like, number one, he's one of the funniest people alive. He is hilarious, but he's also he is really, really funny. Like, really funny, and it's quick, it's dry, it's and he does have a huge heart, and he is one of the smartest basketball minds. Like, he really, really is, and so seeing him relax, seeing him have fun like that was really cool. I'm glad he's enjoying what he's doing.
So Tim,
no doubt about it.
So Tim, you dealt with him, Raftery, but you also had the pleasure of working with Beano Cook.
Oh, yeah.
How would you – I mean, people say there'll be no one else like somebody. I mean, there's no one quite like Beano Cook, was there?
He was unblinking believable. he was – Brando, I love you, man. I love you. And I love your wife. She's a great Southern Italian woman, and more than anything, she's not a ball buster. I love Southern Italian women, and she's not even a ball buster. And she looks good. She could be a ball buster, but she's not. He was the best and a national treasure. I tell this to people all the time. And look, I have nothing but respect for the people that are doing College Game Day on ESPN, Fowler, and he took over a year after I left. He didn't actually replace me, but he came a year after I left game day, and I started doing games. But, they took that show to iconic levels. We were just a little cable that could when College Game Day began. But I'm here to tell you, there would have not been a College Game Day without Bino Cook. Bino Cook was the foundation of College Game Day, just as he was the foundation of Roone Arledge's approach to college football and making sure games of the century like Arkansas, Texas in 1969 and Nebraska, Oklahoma in 1971, those games were moved to specific dates at the urgency of Bino when he was a publicist for ABC after he left sports information at Pittsburgh and then later the Dolphins. But his love was always Pitt. I mean, he always loved Pitt. It was home for him. And you always knew that when you were around him. And the stories he told, and whenever I got to tell him a story about what I was doing, for instance, especially when it was a Penn State game that I was covering, and the SID at Penn State back then was Bud Tallman. Bud was a legendary SID in his own right, had been with the Buffalo Bills for years. And I told him a story about getting to interview Joe Paterno after a game that they were playing with Maryland. But Bud told me, hey, Tim, I can't guarantee that you'll get Paterno after the game, but if you drive to West Virginia, just outside West Virginia where we're staying, and it was about an hour's drive from where they were staying to where Morgantown was, but if you drive to the Holiday Inn where his brother George is doing the morning radio show on Saturday, I guarantee you he'll do the interview after the game, win or lose. I'm like, what? So I wake up at like 6 in the morning to go to this interview, and it lasted for like an hour. I'm in a hotel. I mean, one of those old, there were no lobbies, no elevators. I'm talking a motel, all right? And I get through. I drive back to do this game, and after the game is over, I run down Stallman and I said, Bud, you got to get Joe for me now. I'm going to do this interview. This is 1986. And Bud said, well, I really don't know. And I said, Bud. And I've got the microphone behind my butt because I didn't want it to be picked up if anybody had a lot of money. I said, Bud, I drove a blanking hour and a half this morning before the sun rose to do his brother's show. And he says, all right. So he goes and he grabs Joe. Now, Joe came over and he was great. He gave me like 2 really good minutes. I came back to Bristol. I told Bino this story. That is so Penn State. That's unbelievable. Brando, I'm so glad I can't wait to tell Tallman. He said, I don't tell anybody else what you told me. Don't ever tell anybody. Bud Tallman's a good man. He's an honest man. But Paterno, he thinks that he thinks he's bigger than the game. And I said, yeah, he kind of does. I get that. But he gave me 2 great minutes. Yeah, well, he knew the cameras were on, and you're a good guy, and you'd remember it the rest of your life.
He carried that with him.
Yeah.
He carried it with him.
Stories like that, he loved those. And any kind of inside baseball stuff I could give Bino, he was awesome about. Now, look, he was a cantankerous guy, too, as you know, and there were some subjects he just didn't want to talk about. And so some of our producers at ESPN, all young, aggressive guys like me, we were all in our late 20s, early 30s, and these guys would say, Bino, we need you to talk about ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. And Bino was like, I have no opinion. I couldn't care less. Don't ask me to talk about something I don't care about. And I told our producer, I said, hey, listen, you got to understand. Bino has a bad prediction game, and we're going to have him do his predictions this week wearing a heavy hat in a manhole cover in New York because he went 0-6. You got to give him a break. Don't ask him to talk about crap that he doesn't care about. And they were like, okay. I said, look, we need Bino to set up the day, and we need Bino to finish the day. All right, he's the guy that's going to set the stage, and he's the guy that's going to put the period on the day, you know, at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning when we're doing some PCAA game between San Jose State and Pacific, okay? Like, to probably about 100,000 people that might be watching ESPN when we only had 25 million cable homes back in those days. But Bino was always there. He always wanted to do it. But don't ask him to do stuff that he's not interested in doing, or he'll just tell you, he'll stonewall you. You know, forget about it. It's not going to happen. But when people today watch Lee Corso put that headgear on, understand this. Lee Corso in those days, okay, because that was the team. It was Bino, Corso, and Brando, okay? I mean, he was our Kirk Herbstreit. He was the XOs guy. Lee was talking real football. Bino was doing all the entertainment. And on Halloween, he would do a skit dressing up. One time we took him to the Bristol penal system, to a prison in Bristol, and he did this piece. I mean, he didn't mind being the butt of the joke, and Corso watched all this. And as he grew older, Lee realized that was the future. He learned from Bino. So all this, you know, the legend that Lee Corso became was in large part because he watched up close the brilliance of Bino Cook.
Tim, that's amazing stuff.
Yeah.
That really is. Thank you for joining us. I know your schedule is busy. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Appreciate it, Tim.
Well, you got it. Actually, Steve Shearer, our old producer, Jeff, you remember from CBS, he's now our lead producer for Fox. He took me to the Palm to eat tonight, and this was a welcome diversion from having to listen to his crap. Right, so I'm gonna call the bartender for McAllen 18 and
nice.
Go down.
Good. I wish I was there with you.
Tim Brando, thank you so much.
Hey, you got it. Give my love to Jason and your family.
Will do,
okay?
man.
Please
Okay.
do.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, pal.
All right.
You got it.
Coming up, we're talking about Bino Cook. He is now in the Sports Communications Hall of Fame. And a man who chronicled his life, John Lucas, is going to join us next to tell maybe a few other stories about the Panther great. Welcome back to the GBU Live Campus View Club here at the Peterson Event Center. We are joined now here on the Jeff Capel Show by author John Lucas, who wrote, "Haven't They Suffered Enough? An Unbelievable Career in Sports, PR, and Television." It's about the life and times of Bino Cook. John, I should just give you the floor and let you tell stories, and we could probably be here till 9 o'clock, but how did you first come to meet Bino?
Hey, both Jeffs, thank you guys for having me on.
Yes.
First thing, after saying that little introduction, I think the scheduling was backed up. I think that I should have been the opening act. Timmy B should have been should have been the main event. He was on a hell of a roll there. So that was great.
How did you guys meet?
Yeah, I wrote Bino a letter when I was in high school.
Wow.
And I told him I wanted to get into, covering college football, wanted to be in sports media, be a sports writer, somehow, some way cover college athletics. And sent it to him at the old KBL.
Oh, wow.
And
That's the old cable company here.
Okay.
Right. I'm thinking that maybe, hey, this guy, he's from my area. Maybe he'll get back to me. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, I get this letter in the mail. It's typed up on this old-time typewriter that might have been through World War II. There's letters are jumping up and down. And, and it says, "Hey, dear John, I got your letter. Be more than happy to talk to you, help you out. Call me at such and such a number, at so-and-so day, this time. I will wait for your call." And it was signed Bino in, purple marker.
That is awesome. Wow.
Yeah,
marker.
And, I called him up, and the rest is kind of history.
Wow.
We just hit it off from there, and it's been an incredible story. But, I later found out in the course of after he asked me to, help him write his memoir, is that many years ago when he was around the same age, Bob Prince took him under his wing. And he said, can you, do whatever you can to, help me out, things like that. And Prince was, just treated him, unbelievable. It was his mentor. And many years later, Bino asked him, he says, "Hey, I owe you dinner. I want to take you out, do something." And Prince said, "You know what, Bino?" He goes, "One of these days, some young kid is going to call you or find you or something like that, and just pay it forward. Do to him what I did, to you. And so that really just kind of floored me that there's a continuation here. So
That's awesome.
That's kind of the story.
John, as you were putting the book together, and we heard from Tim, what kind of impact did Bino have on the way we see college athletics covered today?
It's really remarkable. The impact. I mean, you can't even. I'm a professional writer, and I can't come up with the word and vocabulary to describe, the kind of just the unbelievable sense that he had for the way things were going to be, how they were going to turn out, what should be on the air, what shouldn't be, different stories, trends. It was almost like he had a crystal ball at a certain point for some things. And I think he was always a people person, so he knew people and he knew the business side of it. But it was really, really remarkable. He gets into, college athletics, worked at Pitt for 10 years. And, I mean, he devoted his life to Pitt and all the student athletes there. He lived for that. And then he went to ABC and got kind of his network television background. And it was strange because I think they were hiring a publicist, someone who was just going to get ink back then. Everything was newspapers, radio and TV were kind of a secondary deal, no internet. And he was this guy that was, wait a minute, I have these ideas. And he would just bounce things off of these executives. And kind of like, Tim said, talking about the game day, the production meetings, all that stuff at ESPN, the guy, A, had no filter, and B, he had no problem telling people what he thought. And if he had an idea, he would barge into an office, whether the guy wanted to hear from him or not, and let him have it. But a great majority of his ideas really came to pass, whether it's, like Tim said, putting those big-time college games on. I mean, Bino was setting up a 1 versus 2 showdown before there was even a college football playoff or before the BCS or anything else. He was kind of the man behind the scenes doing these things. And, I kind of feel bad. It wasn't until we got this book out that he really were telling the public and the people what kind of impact he had on sports, especially the television.
I got to imagine back then, John, that ESPN execs at times would cringe, like either worried about what he might say or what he actually did say.
Definitely. No, he like I said, he really didn't care what people thought. Once he was convinced that he was right, and he was just going to go. A prime example of that would be the 1993 college game day, taking the show on the road. Now we just take it for granted. You get up and watch it, and every Saturday in college football season. Now they have a basketball version of it. Yeah. 40 years ago when the show came out, or 87, there was no concept that ever. I mean, it was somebody did a review, said it was like it was a show filmed in somebody's garage, and nobody knew when it was on, who was on it, those type of things. And Bino said, no, we have to take this on the road. We have to, get on these campuses, be around these crowds. The kids will take over. They will do it. And he was kind of like the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come type thing. He would just keep hammering these ideas home. And honest to God, I think a lot of them, whether it was Roone Arledge at ABC or a lot of the guys in Bristol, they probably gave him a shot because they were tired of arguing with him and tired of
Well, John,
just, hey, will you shut up if we do this? Yeah.
I want you to think about your top couple of stories, and we're going to share those next as we continue, as we discuss the late, great Bino Cook and what he meant to the University of Pittsburgh here on the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. And we are joined again by John Lucas. Haven't They Suffered Enough? An unbelievable career in sports, PR, and television, book about Bino Cook. There are all kinds of stories. I was telling Jeff off air a funny encounter I had with Bino once. We were talking about the Military Bowl, and we were talking about Navy, and he's like, that's the toughest road schedule in the history of the world. Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and he went through all the battles that the Navy has fought over that span of time, and that always stuck with me because he had that blend of, he loved sports, but he also had more to him than that. What are some stories that stick out to you, John?
I tell you what, there are so many great ones, and everybody, especially around here in Pittsburgh, people have local ones, their favorites. Obviously, the Cook, Bino story, which a million people have heard. It's in the book. It's a great one. There's the Haven't They Suffered Enough? Where that line came from. It's another Bino classic. One of my favorites It's kind of buried in the book. It doesn't get a lot of attention, but I think it's perfect for this week. With Pitt going into Durham to play the Blue Devils this week. Jeff, having played for Duke, will appreciate this one. January 1958, Bino and Pitt, they traveled down to North Carolina to play the game. Pitt didn't have a great team, but they were fighting. It was a close game early on. Bino insisted to the day he died that the refs were all over Duke. That was just home cooking from
You've never heard that
the
before,
opening
Jeff.
tip off. Right. Anyway, Bino, he got so animated and so agitated, he got thrown off a press row. I mean, he was yelling. I mean, there was profanity up and down the line. He was calling the refs every name in the book, going bananas. And finally, they shut the game down. There was, a huge confrontation. There were state troopers there. They were going to escort. They not just off the premises. He was going to jail. And they had this summit there. They had the athletic directors. Ted Mann, who was Bino's counterpart, is the Duke SID. Mm-hmm. They brokered this agreement where Bino wasn't going to go to jail, but he couldn't stay on press row and heckle the refs anymore. he would have to go up into the stands. So they sent him up into peanut heaven somewhere, but he still kept it up. He was just yelling and screaming. And it's just that was the Bino, that was the number one, that was the super fan that, sometimes his love for Pitt just it exceeded his professionalism.
How much? I'm sorry, John. How much did he discuss his love for Pitt?
Oh, it was constant. I mean, there was nothing else. He never married in his life, never had any kids. The Pitt was his only love. His first and only love. That's the way it was. And obviously he bequeathed a nice amount. That's why the Bino Cook practice fields are named for him. But it was more than money or anything else. It was a true love affair because he helped Pitt out as many ways as he could do it. Whether it was publicity. Even when he got, to be a household name, when he was on the air, he went to ABC and ESPN, he would give attention wherever he could. But, he was also kind of a tough father figure, too. Whenever an administrator or coach or someone needed to hear some tough words, Bino would be there. And it was always, constructive criticism. He was never trying to get anybody fired, tear anybody down. But Pitt's success was first and foremost in his mind at all times. So that was probably one of his best memories I have of him and his ongoing legacy. And it's kind of funny too because the picture that's in the back of the book was taken of him and I at Pitt Stadium the day they started tearing it down. And I could tell we're walking out of there. He was always entertaining, laughing, funny, but you're leaving, you could tell there was a little part of him that was being torn down there too. So that was just the way he was. I mean, there was. You could sort of take him off campus, but you couldn't take, the campus out of him.
And I'm sure he probably reminded you who won the game the last time they played there.
He sure did. I mean, that was I had a friend of mine by the name of Brad Spear, a guy I went to high school with, was there that day because we were shooting something for ESPN Sports Century, and they left the score up. Pitt 37, Notre Dame 27. He goes, "Oh, you guys should take this picture." Yeah, since I went to school in Notre Dame, so. As soon as he saw that, yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
Well, John, thank you so much for joining us. It was great reminiscing. Check out the book. Haven't they suffered enough? An unbelievable career in sports, PR, and television. John, thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, John.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, avenge Bino this.
Yeah, no.
Get this done.
I'll feel the same way about the refs, I'm sure.
When we continue, I'm going to get Jeff's thoughts on the conference so far on the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. Here inside the Peterson Event Center at the GBU Life Campus View Club. And, Jeff, it's been an interesting ACC. I mean, Carolina and Duke, I think, combined have won 15 straight. But there are all these teams, and I don't know top to bottom if I can remember a year where – and you said it a couple of weeks ago, watch out, Louisville's going to put it together.
Yeah, I mean, it's I haven't seen everyone yet just because I've been so locked in on us. So I've seen the teams that we've played. But, there have been some surprises. When we played Clemson, that was early December, I thought Clemson was one of the best teams in the country. I really did. And the fact that they're, I think, 2-4 now in the league. Like I'm shocked by that. Miami has just lost 2 home games. Louisville went down there and beat them after we played Louisville, and then they lost to Florida State yesterday at home. Like I was shocked by that. But I shouldn't, because conference play, like that's just what happens. It's hard. The teams know each other. They're good teams. They're good coaches, and so it's difficult. It's hard. You look at Georgia Tech. They're the only team that beat Duke. They were up 10 in Cameron in the second half the other day. I mean, it came down. It was a one-possession game. I mean, I don't know what the final may have been, 4 or 6, but Georgia Tech led for a good part of that game. And so the teams are really good. I do think, I was asked this the other day by the TV guys that were doing the game, who's the best team we've played. I think it's Duke and Carolina since, that we've played. And I told them I think it's a little bit different. I mean, Duke just blitzed us in that first half. They made every shot, and I think it's maybe the best that they played. That's what John told me after the game. This Carolina team this year is different. Like there's a toughness to them that they haven't had really since our first year here. And they like each other. The past few years, I think they had some competing personalities on their team. And I think Hubert Davis, their coach and their coaching staff, I think they've done a great job of addressing that and getting the right people. But, look, man, you can get hot. Teams can get hot. You can get going. Hopefully we're one of those teams coming up soon where we can start being the team that we know that we can be, that we were, and that I think we can be and we will be. We got to cross that bridge.
Pitt Duke Saturday is more than just a great basketball matchup. There's more to it. There's a cause involved. Hoops for ALS. We're going to discuss that as we continue on the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. So Saturday at 8 on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network, Hoops for ALS. It is Game 2, Pitt Duke. The game is at Cameron Indoor, but it is more than just a game. People probably know your father died of ALS. Mm-hmm. What's the message you want to get out about ALS awareness?
Well, it's just awareness. It's awareness. It's interesting. Like I had heard of ALS. And I kind of knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was. Like I did the Ice Bucket Challenge. I was actually with USA Basketball. We were in Vegas, and our team did it. We came back at Duke. Our team did it. That was 2014. And so I knew what it was, but I didn't really know until 2016 in March when my father was diagnosed. And I just felt like, I wanted to be a part of helping to raise awareness. We started a fund in my dad's name at Duke when I worked at Duke. His doctor was at Duke, Dr. Bedlack, and just to raise awareness, but also to raise money for research, trying to help find a cure. My dad was diagnosed in March. It wasn't until the next January that we announced it, and I wrote an article in the Players Tribune. And that's how, because my dad was very private, so the only people that knew was our family, and that's how we introduced, told the world, that my dad was dealing with this. But we also did it, and I got my dad's permission to try to help to raise awareness. That's why we did it, to try to help raise money for research and things like that. And then when I got with these guys for Hoops for ALS, they did this for baseball. Obviously, there's a natural connection with baseball because of Lou Gehrig.
Right.
But they did this, Tom and PJ and these guys, and they reached out to me and wanted to do something with basketball because Tom's mom was a huge basketball fan. And so we tried it last year. We were trying to put stuff together, just trying to do something, and it didn't work, the timing of it. And then this year they reached out to me, and we were able to do it. Obviously, because it's Duke, my relationship, the hospital there, the doctor there. So we did it for both games, and excited about it. It was awesome here.
We're going to find out next week how this all transpired. And then the money raised, fundraise.net/donate/Pitt Duke. We'll wrap up the show as we continue on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. We thank you all for joining us today. Panthers, Blue Devils, 8 o'clock on Saturday right here on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network.